Welcome back to the program. So first and foremost, I hope everybody had a very happy Easter. God bless each and every one of you. I hope you had a wonderful time with your family. And we're going to get to some Easter stuff. That's what this show is mainly going to be about. But I wanted to start with something else. You know, Bill Clinton deported 12 million illegal aliens. Guess how many injunctions he had? Close your eyes. What do you see? Exactly, none. George W. Bush had 10 million. And guess what? Not one injunction. Hell, even Barack Obama had 5 million. Okay? He had 5 million. Not one injunction. President Trump hasn't even deported 1 million people yet. Thankfully, millions have already left under the fear of deportation. I think somewhere around 4.5 to 5 million. So you could say, that he's doing pretty well. But 100,000 people have been deported, if that. 30 injunctions. Imagine that. 30 injunctions from these left-wing radical judges. They're doing this because it's Trump, not because of immigration. This is nothing having to do with immigration. This has to do with the person who's ordering the deportations. It's as simple as that, okay? Now, check this out. This was from 2023, so just a few years ago. This is from UCLA Law Review. Okay, in 2023, this was an article, I guess you could call it an attack article, against Joe Biden. Why? Well, because he was deporting hundreds and thousands of people. And it doesn't seem like he has, because we saw 22, 24, 28 million, whatever, 32 million coming into the country illegally. But there were deportations, and quite a bit of them. So much so that the UCLA Law Review got a little upset and wrote this. So here's what it says. December 13th, 2023. Damning new report reveals the Biden administration's unlawful treatment of children in immigration courts. Data show that tens of thousands of children have been ordered deported, most without legal representation or their due process rights. A damning new report released today by the Center for Immigration and Law and Policy at the UCLA School of Law finds that the Biden administration has failed children in immigration court under its watch. Despite taking important steps in its early days, the report details how the administration's policies have led to grave injustices for children facing immigration court proceedings in the United States and results in tens of thousands of children ordered deported, most without legal representation or their due process rights. Let's stop right there, okay? Biden was the largest child trafficker in American history, okay? Or President Autopen, whoever the hell was running things for the last 4+ years, okay? 300,000 children, poof, gone, just missing. No one knows where they are. Multiple illegal aliens claiming the same child as theirs. Multiple children being assigned to child traffickers, rapists, and murderers to get them into the country. We remember the O'Keefe videos that showed all these people and these whistleblowers coming forward and talking about it and how they can't believe that these children are being placed with rapists and pedophiles. But that's fine. Not one judge is going to step in when there's 300-something thousand children missing. Nope, sorry. Not one judge cares. But President Trump dares to send back MS-13 gang members, and all hell breaks loose. Unreal. Children make up a significant number of those facing removal proceedings in the first 5 months of fiscal year 2022. Almost 1/3 of all new cases in immigration court involve children, including tens of thousands of children under the age of 5, many of which now are gone or missing. Some of these children are, quote, unaccompanied because they arrived alone. Others are in proceedings with their, quote, families, including a much criticized fast-tracked, dedicated docket for families seeking asylum. And it goes on more and more and more. But the bottom line is, Biden, as many as 20 whatever million he let into the country, he also did deport about 4 million in his time, or President Otto Penn did. So why is it that President Trump isn't allowed to deport gang members, rapists, and murderers that are killing our men, women, wives, sisters, brothers, husbands? That's fine, right? They can kill, like I told you, collateral damage. It's not about deportation. It's not about immigration. It's about who's ordering the deportations and who's in charge of immigration. They hate Trump that much that these judges are stepping up where they shouldn't be stepping up because they have no legal right or authority to do so, and they are meddling in the executive branch. And I just hope in time that every one of these judges gets smacked down so hard, and President Trump does what he did to the lawfare groups in the 65 Project. These are the 65 law firms across the country that went after anyone that filed any type of claim or legal proceeding against the stolen 2020 election, right? They called it the 65 Project. Well, the 65 Project have also been targeted now by President Trump. Perkins Coie comes to mind immediately. There's a couple of other law firms. I hope that once this is over with, these district judges, whoever appointed them, doesn't matter who they are, they need to be targeted. Let me repeat that. They need to be targeted financially in particular, and they need to be defunded, and they need to be fined. And he can sign an executive order doing exactly all of that. And let's hope that he does. Okay? Now, President Trump, well, in only the fashion that he can, wished everybody a happy Easter as well. Well, his is a little different. Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to keep murderers and drug lords and dangerous prisoners and, of course, criminally and mentally insane people, as well as known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back in our country. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposely allowed millions of criminals to enter our country totally unvetted and unchecked, though through an open border policy that will go down in history as one of the single most calamitous acts ever perpetrated upon America. He was by far our worst and most incompetent president, President Otto Penn, let's call him, a man who had absolutely no idea what he was doing, but to him and to the person that ran and manipulated the Otto Pen, perhaps our real president, and to all the people who cheated in the 2020 presidential election in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you, with great love, sincerity, and affection, a very happy Easter. Only the way Trump can do it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so I wanted to end with this. This is something that I had a chance to read. It's from a gentleman by the name of David Kupelian, who I believe writes for WorldNet Daily. And, well, it's Easter. And so it's his interpretation of what Easter is and what Easter's all about. Me being a Jew, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on any of this stuff, but I'm going to read it, and you can all comment on it and decide what you think. And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? That is Mark 8:34-37. And he said to them all, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. That was from Luke 9:23. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. Matthew 10:38. Every Easter, many dazzlingly eloquent words are written and spoken about Christ's passion, a singular historical event graphically portrayed in films like The Passion of the Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, and The Greatest Story Ever Told. That these screen depictions serve to powerfully rekindle many believers' gratitude for what Jesus endured for their sake is undeniable. But I do wonder, how often does the appreciation for Christ's sacrifice truly ignite a fire in the belly of believers to take up the cross themselves? But first things first, what in the world does taking up the cross really mean? I die daily. In ages past, Christians dwelt a lot more on the concept of taking up the cross than they do these days. Today, the phrase, "it's my cross to bear," is usually a self-congratulatory reference to the fact that we have to put up with a vexing medical condition, or a child in trouble with the law, or perhaps even an overbearing live-in mother-in-law. Admonitions from the pulpit may not shed more light. Oh, sure, a well-intentioned minister will reverently read one of the scriptures cited above on taking up the cross, and he might even briefly plug the idea of self-denial. But too often this amounts to a polite nod to a notion that seems both archaic and almost irrelevant, or at least unattainable, and the pastor just moves on to more pleasant topics, like how grateful we are for Christ's death and resurrection. It was always so. Throughout past centuries, Christian philosophers and mystics dwelt at length on the crucial life and death need for repentance, resignation, mortification, the crucifixion of sin in man, and the death of the carnal man, or of the creaturely self, and so on. The Apostle Paul said it most powerfully and succinctly when he wrote, "I die daily." Unfortunately, much of what has been written in more contemplative eras about this inner transformation of man is highly poetic and allegorical, an attempt to use mere words to chart the narrow path that connects man's lowly estate with God's heavenly one. Although such archaic language may be profound, it's probably insufficient for Christians today, buffeted as we are on the outside by a voracious and atheistic secular culture, and on the inside by what is increasingly a simplistic and far less rigorous Christianity than that embraced by our forefathers. Well, even as a Jew, I understand that, right? He's talking about the fact of the Catholic left versus the Catholic right. We've got to stop the Catholic left. They're the ones that believe in killing babies. They're the ones that believe in open borders, and they believe in all this other crazy stuff. So there is a distinct difference, and I do understand where he's coming from. Please allow me to take a stab at this from a somewhat different angle. This command from Jesus Christ that each of his followers take up his cross daily. What exactly is the creaturely self that Christian thinkers throughout centuries have so colorfully warned we must, quote, slay or crucify if we're to inherit the kingdom of God? It's self-evident that we were all born with a troublesome nature called pride. Basically, pride is the part of us that wants to be like God. It loves being praised, quickly puffs up with angry judgment over the real or perceived wrongs of others, and, as a rule, is oblivious to its own faults. Moreover, you can think of pride as a life form, a living, breathing something, which, like any other life form or creature, can be fed or starved. When it's fed, it grows and enlarges. When it is starved, it diminishes and dies daily. As is our pride, our sinful self, diminishes and dies through obedience to God. The direct result is that our good side, our true God-centered character and identity enlarges. We're not talking about matters of dogma here, nor is this just a matter of outward behaviors and works. So please don't email me with arguments about faith versus works. This is about real change, about transformation, the mystical heart of the true Christian life, about dying to the world. Not an archaic, poetic, and hopelessly idealistic notion, but the very heartbeat of our everyday life as we deal with stresses and problems, trials and tribulations in our lives. Of course, and this is something of a divine paradox, as Christians, we know we can't save ourselves, and yet we are most definitively called to obedience. So let's not slaw off our responsibility to die daily by comfortably presuming on the unending mercy of God. His mercy is unending, indeed, but also balanced with justice, and these two seemingly contradictory qualities work together mysteriously and wonderfully toward our redemption, but only in the true, sincere human soul that doesn't tempt God. To understand what's taking up the cross means we have to understand why Jesus himself had to suffer. More poignantly, if our loving God is omniscient, if I pronounce that right, omnipotent and omnipresent, so the only one I couldn't figure out was the first one, which he is, why then did his own son have to be tortured and executed? Countless people throughout the ages have asked, if God is love, why would he require his own son to endure such torture and death? Indeed, many have judged God in concluding, I could never worship a God like that. Although we say God is love, we don't really know what either one is, do we? God is beyond our comprehension, like understanding infinity. And love, well, we use that word to describe our strong feelings for anyone and anything that we're attracted to. Let's talk about real love. There's one element present in almost every authentic manifestation of real love among us human beings, and that is, are you ready for this? Suffering. From the ultimate expression of love, greater love hath no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friend. To the simple act of being patient with others, love implies forbearance, long-suffering, and kindness in the midst of problems. Here's how Webster defines patience: the bearing of provocation, annoyance, misfortune, or pain without complaint, loss of temper, or anger. Certainly Jesus' words as he was dying on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, are the kindest, most patient words ever spoken. So there was some more to it than that. And again, I'm not a religious scholar. I just saw it. It said that it was about Easter. I figured I'd read it. I think there's a lot of interesting points to it, of course. From someone who's not a religious person from the standpoint of understanding the Bible. I mean, obviously I'm a Jew, so I don't really understand the Bible. I mean, I'm a politics guy. You all know that after all these years. But as a Jew, I am extremely pro-Christian. I've always been pro-Christian. I'm the type of person that will, correct someone when they say Happy Holidays. I say, no. It's Merry Christmas. It's not Happy Holidays. It's Merry Christmas. Let's stop taking Christ out of everything. Thank God we live in a Judeo-Christian society. If we didn't, who knows what would happen? 3,000 years of darkness, more than likely. And so as a conservative Jew, I detest liberal Judaism. I've said that many, many times, but I've also understood why liberal Jews vote the way they do. But that's a story for another day, because I always say the same thing. Liberal Jews are liberals first and Jews second, where Christians and conservatives are Christians first and conservatives second. And I think that indeed is the difference, because you have to be a Christian or a God-fearing person before you can be associated with a political party and or an ideology. Where American Jews get it wrong is they put Judaism and their religion and their call to greatness and their, worship of God, they put it second. Okay? They put it second. Their ideology is radical extreme leftism. That counts. That's their religion. Judaism is just a byproduct. Okay? Now, a lot of Jews don't like when I talk like this. That's okay. I'm not here to entertain right now anyway, and I don't care what people think or say. I speak from the heart always. And what I can tell you is that, thank God, we live in a Christian nation. If the proverbial you-know-what ever hit the fan and there was an invasion into this country, who would protect us? Would it be the liberal Jews? Of course not. It would be the Christians. It would be the evangelicals. It would be the ones that fight in our wars. It would be the ones that, for the most part, become our police officers. It would be the ones that go into our military. It is those evangelical Christians that make up the heartbeat of what America is all about. And my greatest hope and prayer is that American Jews finally wake up and realize there is no better friend to Israel than the Christian right. And maybe they'll wake up one day, maybe they won't. I don't know. But in any event, that was my added piece to whatever this thing was that I read. And should be some interesting comments. So, can't wait to hear them. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.